teach, probably more satisfying to me. Once again, my deepest thanks to all of you for coming here today, for sharing your wealth of knowledge and experience. We want to build this on, continue, and there will be bigger gatherings later on. Thanks for coming and making this a very interesting and very useful evening. I think we're getting ready for dinner, so we'll do that. And you can chit chat and pass around your information.
And
we'll take a group picture before you disappear.
As mentioned earlier, I'm running for the Democratic Central Committee, and what we do is interview candidates and recommend them, and we interview resolutions and recommend some of them. And so that's what it's about. And I'd like to pass these around. Feel free to take one if you want to. It's optional. And then just pass it on. Thank you. Residential property, agricultural property, and owners of commercial and industrial properties with combined value of $3 million or less. So that's right there in the ballot prop that was approved by the Attorney General to describe this. So it is absolutely will not increase our property taxes on residential, whether we're renting or whether we own. But you're going to hear a lot of propaganda against it. Well, okay. I've believed that we needed to do this for a number of years, and I brought the petition that will requalify and change the ceiling on exempt of commercial and industrial property from 1 million to 3. And so if you're willing to sign that, if you're a registered voter, and if you're a registered voter in Alameda County, that's the only one I brought along was Alameda County, assuming that we all be Alameda County residents tonight. All right, so that's it. It will reclaim up to $12 billion every year. And that's something many of us, I see some white hair around, and I certainly have my share of it. We used to be among the top 3, often the first, on our funding of schools here in California before Prop 13 passed. But since then, with Prop 13 and it freezing the commercial and industrial property along with residential, we've gone down and down and down, and we're now in the bottom 5, where our schools have suffered just horribly from Prop 13 because they duped us into thinking this was about freezing residential, but it wasn't about that. It was about freezing residential, but the thing that they were really after was to freeze the commercial and industrial. And so that's what it did, and that's where our schools and communities have really been starved for funds gradually more and more and more in the years since 1978. It does not raise taxes on homeowners or renters. It does close the property tax loopholes so that large corporations like Chevron will pay taxes at fair market value. Chevron, I've heard the numbers, and it is, I think I've heard $100 million a year. Anyway, it's a huge number that Chevron has been getting by without having to pay as a result of the way Prop 13 was put in. Disney is a very commercial enterprise. We think of it, a lot of us think of it as, oh, well, that's sweet little Mickey and Minnie and Pluto and so forth and so on. Well, it's a commercial enterprise, and their property taxes have been frozen at the 1978 level all these years, and so their property taxes are, compared to today, almost zero. And that's just 2 examples, Chevron and Disney. But there are hundreds and hundreds of corporations that have benefited from the way Prop 13 was snuck in. I think that's maybe enough for me to say about it.
Out of breath now?
I'm sorry?
Are you out of breath now?
No,
All right.
no, I can probably talk
Hold
some
on
more.
until people come with like 20, 30 questions, okay? At the end. All right?
At the end,
Thank you
All right.
very much. Give him a big hand, please. Although we have, I'm here in front of 30,000 people tonight. With that said, I think I'm going to invite the census lady. Lisa, you want to talk? Beautiful, come on.
Oh, I do have some
Fires
brochures
to give, yeah.
about, I'm running for the Democratic Party County Central Committee in Alameda County. And I'm part of a slate, and I brought some brochures on that.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
I'll give them a few
Thank
to
you.
sit. Hi, my name's Lisa Brunner, and myself and Sharon Campbell over there are here tonight to represent the United States Census. We both work for the Department of Commerce, which is federal, and we're hiring. The census is exceedingly important to your community, to our state, to our country. We're hiring locally, which pretty much means all over Northern California, but it's the same application nationally. You go to 2020census.gov/jobs. Why is the census important? Well, the decennial census is done every 10 years, and most people know that it determines our representation in Congress. Right now, California has 53 representatives in Congress, and it also results in redistricting. But more importantly than that, it also is the way that we get our federal tax dollars back. California is one of the few states that pays more in federal tax than we get back. To get that money back is determined by the demographic information that gets returned for the census form. We do not ask citizenship, we do not ask social security numbers, but we do ask birthdays. The tax dollars we get back from the federal government pays for roads, sidewalks, hospitals, police, fire, libraries, parks, preschool, daycare, after-school programs, social programs, just about anything that both public and private entities apply for grant money for uses census data. Why do we ask birthdays? The example I like to use is communities like Rossmore, well-known senior community. The average age is over 70. That community needs hospitals and senior programs. They don't need preschool and daycare. Just about every school district in Alameda County has waiting lists for preschool and daycare. Seniors need parks, children need parks. Seniors don't need a playground, kids need a playground. And however many people answer, and the age determines the funding for your community for the next 10 years. For every person not counted, you lose a minimum of $1,000 a year. For the next 10 years, that's $10,000. The Complete Count Committee just figured out for Alameda County alone, if we drop to 94% return, 6% of the people that we know of that live in Alameda County do not return their census form. That is $1 billion that Alameda County alone will lose for programs over the next 10 years. So it's very important. So how do we do this? People say, oh God, I have to go door to door. I don't want to go in a person's home. This is my third census. I did this in 2000, I did this in 2010, and I'm doing it for a third time. My oldest daughter did it in college in 2010. She's a teacher. She's going to do it this summer. When I do the training, I tell people that you'll identify yourself. You're going to get your list of contacts in your neighborhood who did not return their form. And you go to the door, you knock on the door, step back. I always step back enough so if they had a security screen to swing open, it will not touch me. I never step forward. I tell people you don't even have to open the screen. And I ask, why didn't you turn it in? And the majority of them tell me they thought it was junk mail and they trashed it with all those other surveys they got. They didn't realize the importance that this is about money. This is about public services. This is about transportation services. This is about police and fire and education. And they're great. They're very nice. And that other house, you never go in the yard with a dog. You email your boss. Most people are bit by a dog under 6 pounds. I believe Chihuahua was #1 in 2010. And then you never go in that house with the yard of a home with questionable people or activities. I use Math House, every community has one. You email your boss. They sell drugs on that property, not going in. You go to a home where somebody gets in your face and wants to be confrontational, you leave. You never get in a confrontation. We want people to answer, and if you're not comfortable in English, you let the person at your door know what language you prefer, and they will send someone to your home. This is not about citizenship. This is about total population count. This is about economics. This is about getting money into your community. And the higher the response, the better the count, and we need people. It's $25 an hour with paid training, no resume, must be 18 with the right to work. You have a 7-day work week, Sunday through Saturday. In those 7 days, you must work 20 hours, no more than 40. You put it together the way you want. You email your work and time in each day you decide to work, and you are paid weekly. Your check is in the bank every Wednesday. I encourage people to do the training, do the job for at least 2 weeks, and you'll know if it's in your comfort zone. Over 90% of the people that start stay as long as they can. So we encourage you to apply. We have workshops at the main Hayward Library every Wednesday and Saturday from open till close. I believe it's 11 to 5 on Wednesdays and 10 to 5 on Saturdays. That's at 888 C Street in downtown Hayward, 94541. And please apply. We need people, and every place you go, you will see 2020 census. Let's get out the count. This is put out by Alameda County Labor Union. And so all your flyers, you're going to notice that you're getting this season for elections. They're all going to be in support of the census. This is important. Right now, California is in danger of losing a congressperson. We're in danger of losing representation. So this is important on many levels, if not for you. If you have friends or family members 18 or older, encourage them to apply. The application takes about 20 minutes, and again, no resume and paid training. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Some of the hidden facts I didn't even know.
Lisa's running for Alameda
Liv-
County Board of Education Area 5. You live in Hayward or Union City?
Okay, and who's coming in? Come on, sir. And I didn't get your name right. and-
Oh, I'm Officer Alex Iwaniki. I've been with the Hayward Police Department for 5 years now. I'm part of our community outreach unit, as well as my partner here, Officer Brawley. You might have seen me in the downtown area. I am the downtown patrol officer between the A Street and D Street areas, as well as from Foothill to City Hall, what we call that downtown economic development area. It's a hot spot and a priority for us to ensure that the tax base there is, we create that environment where people want to come, they want to visit Hayward. We don't allow this to become a bedroom community where people just come home and leave during the day to go do better things in better places that they feel safer and more happy with. We want to make Hayward that destination. And so that's a little bit about my job. I was invited here tonight to just give a brief overview of the concept of both probable cause and reasonable suspicion. Those are two concepts super important to policing, and really is the foundation of this frequent question that we get. Well, why are the police bothering me? Right? Something that people are very curious about. And it's a pressing topic, especially as we see in the media. More than ever, we are able to portray all the goings-ons. We have cameras everywhere, and there is a new eye, and a very important eye, into the way the police work goes on in the United States of America. And so we'll start off by talking about probable cause. I think the most important thing to understand about both these concepts is that the United States Supreme Court has actually said at one point, articulating precisely what reasonable suspicion and probable cause means is not possible. So we have the highest court in the land already saying that a definition is not possible. So what we have to work with then is a framework, right? There is not something that can be applied every time. And so to understand how these things work, what we have to do is we have to see and examine that word probable, right? What the court has broken down is it means something with a fair probability. That is to say, that the person who we are investigating, who we have stopped, is there a fair probability that this person committed this crime? A much different threshold than being guilty, a much different threshold than any kind of civil liability, but specifically to, can this person be arrested? Is there probable cause to do so? And so the other threshold, of course, and to a much lesser degree, is what we consider reasonable suspicion. Reasonable suspicion is basically founded upon, based on the totality of the circumstances that we have at that moment, do we have enough to detain somebody and investigate what is going on? It doesn't mean that they're going to jail. It doesn't mean that they won't be free to go in as soon as just a couple of minutes. You might have even been detained yourself if you rolled through a stop sign and a police officer pulled you over, or if you didn't have a front license plate on your car, which is all the rage in the year 2020 now for us to stop people for. Those are examples of being detained as well. And the threshold for that is much lower. In fact, courts have ruled that it is significantly lower than even the preponderance of evidence, which means lower than 51%.
Civil standard. Okay.
Yes, even below that civil standard.
Oh.
So you don't even need a 50% chance to believe that there is criminal activity that either occurred or is happening or may happen in the future. A very low threshold to be stopped by the police and have them ask you questions. These are things to keep in mind. I am flipping through some documentation up here, and it is not my own writing. It is something that the Alameda County District Attorney's Office publishes, and they post all of their issues online. It's called Point of View. I do encourage anybody who lives in Alameda County to Google and look at their archives. They put lots of interesting stuff up there. Some may not apply to you. Some things about, very serious crimes that you may never find yourself involved in, but there's also very interesting things on there about, what is a police officer allowed to tell you to do when he pulls you over? What rights do you have as a citizen when you have contact with a police officer? These are all important things to know in order to be a member of society and make sure that you're exercising your rights. I'm a firm believer that people who know and are prepared for every situation, things go much more smoothly and much more fluidly. It's when people are confused, when they're not educated, and they're not aware of everything going on around them or everything that could happen. That's when the conflict arises, and when people tend to butt heads, and when we have these circumstances that we're not interested in getting into whatsoever. I love nothing more than to be able to stop and talk to somebody and give them the old goodbye and get on with the rest of my day. With that being said, another thing that I really wanted to focus on was community engagement with the Hayward Police Department. Being that we're with our community outreach team, we have social media. If anybody here is on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, I encourage you, if you personally are not interested in it or you don't do it, have a family member sign up and follow us. Really try to get into that, because that's the main way now that we push out news and goings-ons at the police department. We have some great community engagement programs as well. We have a volunteer program. If you're interested, you can always talk to me after, or reach out to the Hayward Police Department in person yourself, and they can provide you with information about how to volunteer. We have a Citizens Academy, where people who live in the city of Hayward can actually attend a 12-week course that is taught for a couple hours, one night of the week, and you learn all about everything that happens at the police department, from investigations to our K-9 unit to SWAT to how we investigate ourselves and investigate our own wrongdoing. All of these things are taught, and we go over to make sure that you all are aware of how the police department works. We've also had our representatives from the census speak at that Citizens Academy as well, and they got to see a little bit of it. I'm a very big proponent of that. I think that people who are knowledgeable and aware are the best members of our community, and I hope you guys all are able to take advantage of that. And I'll be around afterwards for any kind of questions or answers that you guys would like to get. Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate that information. The Hayward Police Department deserves credit because they started a new thing a few years ago, the coffee.
The coffee with
Coffee with a cop, right.
Mm-hmm.
You see their Facebook, they have the Facebook thing too. Go there. This picture with me is an exclusive one for my publication, 2017, when they kicked it off. I would encourage you to interact with them and take advantage of that. Drink some free coffee. Mr. Burton, they give you free coffee. Anyway, so I go back. Over the years, I've noticed that the Hayward Police Department changed its outlook and contact or behavior with the public. If you were to ask me about 18 years ago, I was very skeptical about the police department. But in recent years, I've seen a very drastic change. As a former police officer, I've been instrumental in changing the police conduct back home. I introduced what was actually part of the customer service to focus on community service rather than hardcore law enforcement attitude, the brutality part of it. So I'm grateful that you've changed. I also have an opportunity of interacting with you guys at the Haywood Police, at the Haywood Unified School District, where I'm an on-call campus officer, safety officer. So we see that you guys on almost a daily basis. Anyway, so I want to continue and build on that. That's what I said to Sergeant
Clayton.
Clayton.
Yes.
Anyway, that said, if you get a chance, read my book, loosely written with a lot of loose ends in that, Administration of Justice, all prefaced in my experience back home in Fiji Islands. Okay, come on in, Doc. Okay, I'm going to move on. Dr. Salahuddin, are you ready with your 20-minute speech?
Not really, I'm just watching.
You're going to watch?
I
All
want
right,
to
sir.
listen.
Thank you very
See.
much. Doc, take seat. Come up here. Come here. We've got a seat here. This is Dr. Kareem from Fremont. He's a cardiologist. I don't want to scare you, but he does mainly for immigrants, those who go for immigration and all that. He specializes in that. Okay, Eduardo, I will invite you to come over and give your piece, please. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, officers, Alex, sir, and ma'ams and sirs. My name is Eduardo Advincula. I was born and raised in the Philippines, but my heritage is Spanish, Portuguese, Filipino. My great-grandfather was Spanish Portuguese, and he married my great-grandmother, who was full-blooded Filipino. At the moment, I work as a certified nursing assistant at Kaiser San Leandro. I used to live in Hayward back in the 5-10 years ago. And my speech may be a little bit historical in nature and a little bit emotional. And I'm also a newly ordained Pentecostal pastor of Jesus Lord back in San Jose. I was ordained on September 23rd, 2018. And I got to meet Dr. Koya in our labor union. It's called the SEIU, USW, Service Employees International Union, United Healthcare Workers. And from there, he introduced to me his tabloid newspaper, Fiji TV Sun USA, and just a month ago, he made me as his associate editor. Well, I'm glad that Officer Alex introduced a little bit of, not only a little bit, but a greater part of what law is all about, especially when it comes to probable cause. Just like what I said, my speech may be a little bit historical and emotional, just bear with me. It was in the year 1998, and with God's matchless help, that I finally received my Bachelor of Law degree at the University of the University of Lyceum of the Philippines. It was a dream come true, yet a dream with a moment full of emotions, a moment full of tears. On January 17, 1997, my beloved father, Colonel Benjamin Advincula, serving the Philippine Constabulary back then, which was converted into the Philippine National Police, took his last breath on earth while I was still in law school. He was not there anymore to be on my graduation day in April of that year in 1998. As I was receiving my diploma in law on stage from the late Philippine Vice President Salvador Laurel, the son of the founder of the Lyceum University, I smelled the fragrance of some flowers when I went back to my seat. I asked my classmates if they were smelling the same thing, and they said no. I figured my father was in my presence on that graduation day. I felt so emotional. Tears ran down on my face. I just couldn't help it. On September 21st, 1972, martial law, if anybody recalls it here, was declared by former Philippine President Ferdinand E. Marcos. I was still in the elementary grades when so many political events were transpiring in my country of birth. My late dad was already serving as a military officer at the time, and he started immersing my young mind into learning little by little the principle of Miranda doctrine, the writ of habeas corpus, the Bill of Rights, and the history of his favorite American war heroes, such as General Douglas MacArthur, General George Patton, Presidents John F. Kennedy, Abraham Lincoln, Ulysses Grant, and George Washington, to name a few. Back in my law school, I began to embrace so much the subject of evidence, just like what Officer Alex was introducing to us, in relation to the knowledge of and wisdom my father filled me with. What is evidence? What comprises evidence? What are the rules of evidence? Taking some excerpts from the Revised Rules of Court in the Philippines, 1995 edition, the textbook that we were using back then, evidence is defined as the means sanctioned by these rules of ascertaining in a judicial proceeding the truth respecting a matter of fact. In simple parlance, no evidence, no legal case. As simple as that. In every nation under the sun, where the rule of law is always observed, the best evidence, the best defense is always evidence. What comprises evidence? What do our venerable or honorable courts adhere to as rules of admissibility?